right, hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the short path or the happy path to implementing Einstein product recommendations on the Commerce Cloud platform. Quick show of hands, who is live on Commerce Cloud using it currently? One person. That's actually better than I thought it was going to be. So I'll try to keep it not too deep, but if you need me to go deeper, I'll be happy to do that. I'm sure you've seen this a million times this week already. So my name is Ross Guthrie. I'm an industry principal with Commerce Cloud. I actually started with Demandware about 5 years ago. I've worked on implementations with clients all over the globe, from fashion to hard goods to outdoor equipment. And it's been fun. I came over with the acquisition, and now I'm working specifically on programs around new features, focusing on Einstein and SEO as well. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the process that's involved with enabling the engine and getting predictive recommendations live on the site. Talk through the data enablement process, and then we'll sort of walk that path in the shoes of one of our clients, Black Diamond Equipment. And then we'll talk about some best practices that they learned about, and some lessons learned that we learned along the way, some mistakes that we made ourselves, some that our clients made as well. And then talk a little bit about resources and a little bit about our community at Commerce Cloud. So brief introduction to Commerce Cloud. We're the world's #1 enterprise cloud platform for transacting online. We are probably most importantly, theoretically infinitely scalable, so there's not the same burden that folks had 10, 15 years ago of having to scale up hardware when they had traffic spikes and things like that. If you're doing a flash sale for the first time ever, you let us know. We can increase resources, and you're not going to have any sort of response time issues and network, or basically site uptime issues. In 2016, we transacted 16 billion online. Monthly, we do over 300 million unique visitors. And of course, we also sell in store. Right now we actually have more than 3,000 websites live, and probably at least greater than 50 countries, but probably more at this point. And this led to some of the accolades on the left here. Our customers are leaders in their market. They grow faster than their competitors on other platforms. They implement much quicker. We have some clients that do their first site in about 3.5 months, and then they can roll out. I had a client that rolled out 30 different country sites in the next 6 months. So the growth is much more accelerated than it's been in the past, when you had the burden of the things that I mentioned, like hardware scalability and having to manage the full stack. So Einstein is a brand. It gets thrown around a lot, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of Einstein on the Commerce Cloud. So back when we were Demandware, we purchased a small intelligence firm out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, known as C-Quotient. And then, of course, I think it was at that time we just called it Predictive Intelligence, and we had already launched the feature that we're talking about now. And probably at least 6 months after, maybe 9 months after this acquisition, Salesforce came along and bought Demandware, always a bigger fish. All right, now let's get into personalization. And this is really personalization as you guys shop websites. So you've probably seen product recommendation banners on categories, product detail page that you shopped when you were shopping other sites. So why does it matter? Catalogs are getting bigger. It's getting harder to find things. People are taking more of what they used to do in store and putting it online. So there's not as much as the ease of finding. There's not an associate there trying to show you all the things that matter to you and really trying to understand your needs and wants. And so that's where personalization can help. If you have a catalog of 100,000 products and a shopper wants something that's on page 6 of your sweaters category, they might not find it. So this is going to help float those products up to people that want those things that might live deeper in your catalog. So enter Einstein, and Einstein is a low-code tool. There's not a whole lot to it. There's no development. We'll get into the details a little bit later. For the feeds, it's a lot of just front-end development, so it may differ from some of the other Salesforce products in that there's not a whole lot of back-end development to do. It's really all the presentation layer stuff. And of course, the benefit is your customers find their products faster, they leave happy, and hopefully they buy from you more often as a result. All right, so let's get into the process a little bit. So first, you want to have an idea of what your personalization strategy is. For a lot of our clients, this is a new thing. They come from a world where it's more about telling a brand story, more about being aspirational versus shopper-centric, whereas personalization is really about reflecting the behavior that the shoppers are showing so that you're not showing them something that they're not interested in just because you want to tell the brand story. There's always a balance between those two things, but personalization is really more towards that. So you want to have an idea of what that balance is going to be before you get into this process so that you're not kind of taken by surprise by what personalization really the result of personalization in a visual way. Once you have an idea of what your goals are, what your strategy is, you can move on to data enablement. There's no coding required. The feeds are in the platform. There's maybe, I don't know, I'm not going to count the clicks, but it's like 10 clicks to do all the feeds, and then you're off and running. That's where we come in. You'll let us know that you have your feeds ready to go. You'll work with your success manager who will put in a request with my team. We check a couple things, make sure all the necessary points are there, and then we'll deploy the engine on your data set. And at that point, it's running nightly and getting updated in real time. Next up, we have the development portion, which is really just styling the templates. So what you see, you may also like, whatever the title is, what font you want that to be. That's really all there is to it. We have a reference application where most of our clients can really just copy the code and use that right away and maybe change a few of the styling elements there. The machine learning piece is kind of ongoing, but once you have it developed, it's now tracking the clicks and basically testing out those predictions that it's making about recommendations for each individual. Then BM, excuse the acronym, is for our admin tool called Business Manager. There's a few things that you do in there. You give you pick your set of business logic, you give it a schedule, you select the style template that you want, and then at that point you're ready to go live. And again, that live part and the machine learning part is constantly updating in both real time and during nightly automation, where the models are retrained and new predictions are made, new users are brought into the system, and we sort of rank products for those individuals. So now we'll talk about this with through the experience of one of our clients, Black Diamond Equipment. If you're not familiar with Black Diamond Equipment, they're an outdoor company specializing in mostly like climbing gear and skiing gear, and they have some like jackets and things like that. They have a really rich culture of risk taking. Some of their employees are like base jumpers, where they ski off the edge of a mountain and pull the chute. They're ice climbers, they're rock climbers, they're normal skiers that don't ski off cliffs. And that really translates through to their culture. They're not afraid to try new things, and they don't agonize over the details. They're ready to try something, prove it out. If it doesn't work, move on and try something else. And that was really part of the reason that led to their easy experience with this. They picked 3 locations to go live with product recommendations. They went on the no search results page, so when you type something and you don't get any results, they would have recommendations there. They went on their cart page, and again, excuse the acronym, but the product detail page as well. At the time they learned about this feature that we offered, they were working with another recommendations engine, so they wanted to test. I mean, our solution was included in their agreement, but they still wanted to make sure that there was no negative impact, that we were at least even, so that there's still a profit story there, not having to pay an extra vendor to handle recommendations. So it was about a 15-day test. We reached confidence on the revenue metric. Not only did they see improvements in revenue, they saw conversion lift as well as average order value increases. And it's free. So for them, it was a no-brainer, and they went live with that winning test. So we'll talk a little bit about their setup process. There's just a few settings to enable the feeds. You set up your catalog feed, which feeds all of your in-stock products to recommendation to the Einstein engine, and it also brings any kind of product data attribution that you have with it, as well as categorization, so it helps us sort of understand what the products are. And then you set up your order feed, which gives us about 2 years of order history data, and then also sends nightly order information. So we want that 2 years of order history data to understand the seasonality of products and the individuals themselves, because different people can show different buying habits different times a year, and different products are popular at different times a year. Those seasonality metrics are also cut by location. So if you have one site serving the globe, if we have that information available, the device and the location, we can skew the recommendations based on where that individual shopper is. Once you have one run of each of those feeds, you'll contact my team. Basically, we'll do a few checks and we deploy the engine. Typically turn that around in about 2 weeks, barring any errors in the automation process. And the code was literally one line of code. They dropped that wherever they wanted to show recommendations on their site, which was the PDP, the cart, and the no search results page. They were able to use our out-of-the-box reference template. So they just made a few styling changes in their CSS files, and then they were off and running and dropped it in the various locations that they wanted to show recommendations. We have a tool called the Configurator that helps kind of control the output of the engine. You can configure different business logic. Like we have strategies, so you can do view correlations, product affinity, which looks at the entire purchase behavior of the aggregate shoppers, and then real-time personalized, which is in-session browse behavior, so that can get reflected in the recommendations. Then we have rules where you can do very specific things, like on your jackets category, I don't want to show other jackets, I want to show complementary products, or things like that. You can do hard rules and soft rules. But for their test, they went live with 0 rules. They didn't want to agonize over the details. They wanted to prove it out in its native state and just see if it worked. At least there wasn't a detriment to business performance. And in fact, they saw a benefit. Again, this is our admin tool, Business Manager, which controls the display and the schedule. So you pick your content type, which is recommendation. You select your business logic that you want to use for this particular zone. You select your styling template and give it a schedule. That's it. And once they had some recommendations published in their staging environment, they used a Chrome plugin that we have called the Integration Validator. It'll show things like events that we're tracking on various pages. And more importantly, it'll tell the developer if the engine is returning recommendations. If the engine's returning recommendations, but there's nothing displaying, there's something wrong with the template. If we're not returning recommendations, then there's maybe an error in the automation process, and you can reach out to our team and we can take a look at it. But that's pretty rare, so it's just a way to kind of see what kind of information we're tracking. And a lot of this information is available in the inspector, but it just kind of brings it up and makes it a little bit more readily available and organized around Einstein. And then some of the best practices that they recommend is on the PDP page, try to push up more similar products towards the front of the carousel. So the carousel is the slider that has products listed in it. And then as you get deeper into the carousel, let complementary products float up into the recommendation zone. On the cart and no results page, they recommended using personalized recommendations blended with best sellers and pushing new products. So the way our personalized products work is if there's no current or recent data on that individual, we'll let best sellers influence towards or sort of skewed towards new products float up. As they start to browse, we'll start reflecting that behavior and recommend products based on what they're looking at currently or in recent browse sessions. And if you have a existing vendor like they did, always A/B test. We have sort of a different pricing model, so we want our customers to grow. We benefit from that. If it's not working for you guys, we don't want to force you into something. So always test to make sure that there's a business benefit to moving over to our recommendations. And then after go live, try new things. If you see something that doesn't quite look right to your experience, to experience for your customers, you can put in rules to change that. So with Black Diamond, they saw on their skis category product pages, they saw other skis getting recommended. And most people they know for a fact don't come in and buy 2 pairs of skis at once. So they wanted to put like bindings and boots higher. So they suppressed the skis, the like products, and brought up, and they actually saw a benefit from that, from doing the A/B test. So there is a sort of a tuning process and improvement over time that can happen through the rules. Some of their lessons learned, the initial technical documentation was challenging for them. We took their feedback and have since improved that. So it's gotten quite a bit better. They recommend working with my team if you can to set up the initial configuration just to make sure you're going to get an accurate read on how it's performing. And then after go live, engage an accelerator so you can put a plan together on how you're going to make the most out of this and really spend some time to get your site set up with a holistic recommendation strategy, something that you know is performing, and so you don't have to revisit it year after year. And then some things that they would like to see is better reporting. Right now we just have sort of a basic Excel file that gets delivered. It tracks things like click rate, add to cart rate, purchase rate, and then purchase amount. So we're working with some of our other analytics teams to incorporate better reporting, a little bit more flexible. They'd like to see market basket features. So if I choose this strategy over another, or this rule, or add this rule, what might be the impact to revenue? And then the ability to adjust and test the algorithm. This is a really common one. It's pretty black box even for me, but there's a few things that you can do to kind of pick different algorithms. We have certain correlations and strategies that just tend to work better than others, but there's a little bit of flexibility in there. And then another really popular one is sticky products. A lot of our customers will have overstock of products and they want to push those. So they want to make sure that in certain categories a specific product is showing to move through that inventory and not have that stuff aging. And then we've deployed, I think, close to 800 sites now on Predictive Recommendations. About 211 accounts are live. And we've learned a lot. We've seen a lot of mistakes kind of occur over and over again. One of those is selecting the wrong image view type. So in the product feed, you can select a particular image view type, and we need the image URL to serve some of our features, so that can like break automation. And then a lot of our clients also have external image delivery, like Scene 7 is a common one, which we can support. We just need a example of the image URL pattern so we can rebuild that for our database to use. And all of these recommendations are in context, so it's in the context of what the shopper is looking at that time. So if they're in a particular category, we're going to recommend from within that category. If they're on a particular product page, we're going to recommend based on that product that they're looking at, so that there's contextual relevance to the recommendations they're getting. And the way we do that is we use what we call an anchor or a context object that tells the engine where the shopper is, so that we can then return recommendations that make sense. And this one's sort of related to reporting. There's an attribute in one of the tags that somehow gets left out pretty often. Not so much anymore, but you just want to include it in there because that gives us our view event that allows us to stitch together and attribute business performance to recommendations specifically, so that we're not attributing. It basically just allows us to be able to deliver the reporting. We have a ton of great resources. We have a timeline that goes through the entire setup process with all the necessary resources linked out to it. If you're new to Commerce Cloud, there's a little bit of a different process, as we require real live data in order to deploy the engine. So it sort of starts at day one. It's a little bit of a sort of consideration you want to have while you're going through implementation. We have a full training guide. It's soup to nuts, 30 some odd pages of everything you need to know as a developer, and then some QA points that really just go through the lessons learned, some common errors that we see through development. The nice part is that initial data enablement process will serve for the foreseeable future all other Einstein features on the Commerce Cloud, so you don't have to go through that again. We have Predictive Sort, which is GA, which is scores a shopper's propensity to take action on a product, add to cart, click, ultimately purchase it. And this impacts like category pages and product listing pages. And that's live now, and we have 150 sites or so live on it currently. Seeing some encouraging results. Next up is purely a back-end tool, automated dictionary settings. This looks at data from across our network and recommends synonyms to improve your search performances. Something I think is really cool is to even find cross-language recommendations. So if you have a lot of Spanish shoppers, it'll recommend Spanish words and things like that. There's a few other ways to become a Commerce Cloud Trailblazer. We have some demo booths, and then there's a lodge, a commerce and retail lodge over at the Palace Hotel that you can visit. And of course, we have Trailhead. All right, that's it. If you guys have any questions, I'll be hanging around. I think I'm out of time, but feel free to shoot me an email or talk to me right here off stage. Thanks.